Hello, Nicole. This is Vanessa Eccles in Orlando.
Hi, Vanessa. Nicole here in Tampa.
Excellent. So glad to talk to you. I have with me in the studio here some young ladies, and they have some questions for you as well. So this is just going to be great for us to get a chance to talk to you. So who has the first question for Nicole? Let's start with Sophia.
What subject in school do you feel most prepared you to be an astronaut?
Wow, that question is always a difficult one. What subject in school most prepared me to be an astronaut? Because I think, honestly, all of them in some way. And certainly the requirements, the criteria to be selected have a lot to do with math and science and those kinds of things. The degrees that you have to have are based on studying math and science, like engineering or being a medical doctor or a scientist, those kinds of things. But I think that personally, what prepared me the most was a class that I took in high school. It was a surprising elective to me because I grew up in a family who loved flying and hung out at the airport all the time. And this one teacher was teaching an elective called like the Introduction to Aeronautics. And I think the fact that I already loved flying and doing those kinds of things, and then finding that in school too, was really, really impressive to me and was very helpful when I started thinking about what I wanted to do at university and to continue on. And I think having that class that had to do with something I loved, which I would encourage you to pay attention to, those things you love, really made what I did in the future a lot more interesting, and I think opened up a lot more opportunities for me as well.
And Taylor?
What are your thoughts on the expeditions happening now?
Well, my thoughts on the expeditions happening now are that we are doing some really incredible things on the space station. And I think that's everything that goes on up there is really, really impressive. And the space station program has a motto, and it's off the Earth for the Earth. And I think that you can't find many things like what we're doing in space right now that do both of those things so nicely. And that's everything from the science to the way we maintain the systems up there to how the space station just runs as this totally off the grid, facility, this wonderful masterpiece in space. But I think what we're doing with the expeditions there, the science is certainly helping us technology-wise improve life here on Earth, and it's helping us explore further off the planet and everything we're doing up there living together. But we're doing it as an international community. We're doing it as Earthlings. So we have partners from 15, 16 different countries that are all involved with the expeditions on the space station right now. And it is such a beautiful example of how we can peacefully and successfully, and I would say even quietly, do really creative and complex things together, which means we can do that down here on Earth too. So it's just this great example of how we should be working together. And especially if we're thinking about going further out into space again, going back to the moon, onto Mars, we're going to need to do that as an international community and continue that. So I think I could talk all day about all the good stuff that's going on the space station. And I'm really thankful that we're here today doing a little of that, because I think there's a lot of people that just don't realize what wonderful things are happening off the planet for the planet.
And Alicia?
Why did you choose UCF over other universities for your Master of Science in Engineering Management?
So UCF for my master's degree. Well, I'm a Florida girl, first of all. So going to school in Florida was something that I wanted to do. And I ended up, after high school, staying local at home. I wanted to earn my private pilot's license, and St. Pete Junior College at the time had this really cool program called Aviation Administration. It was kind of a business aviation degree, but it would set me up to do the aeronautical engineering that I wanted to do at university. But it also allowed me to earn my private pilot's license. So I went to the St. Pete College first, and that was outstanding because it set me up very nicely to go on to then Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University and earn my aeronautical engineering degree. And I loved it there. It was on an airport. All the people that you were studying with loved aviation and flying and learning how things fly. And that led me very nicely to be able to apply to work at NASA at the Kennedy Space Center. And I worked there for a couple of years. And that was right when we were returning to flight after Challenger. And a lot of young engineers working there. And this is going to see, I know it seems like a really long answer to your question, but um, Florida girl in schools, now working at the Kennedy Space Center on space shuttles with a bunch of other young engineers. And our managers very astutely noticed that a lot of us as engineers didn't have any real project management background. And so one of those managers in particular, Mr. Jay Honeycutt, who was running shuttle operations at the time, decided that we should go back to school and earn our master's degree in a degree that would allow us uh, to basically get the shuttle from the runway back to the launch pad and all of it we needed to do to make sure that shuttles were flying. And so he worked with one of the deans over at the University of Central Florida, and they set up this really cool engineering master's degree program called engineering management, which was basically an industrial engineering kind of degree. But it was really nicely focused on the kinds of things we were doing getting shuttles ready to fly in space. And so I think it just worked out very fortuitously. I was in Florida, I'm working at Kennedy Space Center, and the University of Florida was, or University of Central Florida was ready to step up and take on this program with these young engineers at the Kennedy Space Center. And they've continued that program to today, I think. And it's been a really wonderful extension of what students learn in engineering to allowing them to apply that engineering to real projects and programs like launching a space shuttle.
What inspired you to be an astronaut?
What inspired me to be an astronaut? Wow, lots of things, I think. I know you guys, talking to Peggy on the interview today, you heard her story of seeing the moon landings and being inspired by that. And that for me certainly was an influence as well. But I can tell you, as a kid, watching those first steps on the moon, and I have vivid memory of that with my family, I thought, wow, that is really, really cool. But it didn't seem real as something for me. I mean, I'm watching this thing happen, and it just didn't seem like it was something I could ever do. No one ever told me I couldn't do it, but it just didn't seem like there was reality to that for me as this little kid watching it on TV. But I did have a very cool influence from my family. My dad built and flew small airplanes out at the little Clearwater Air Park there, which is still there. And so we spent a lot of time out at the airport together. And I think that love of flying got in my blood too. And so I knew I wanted to fly. I knew I wanted to learn how things fly. And then when you're learning how things fly, you have to want to know how rocket ships fly too. So that became, I think, the initial connection to wanting to work for NASA at the Kennedy Space Center on the space shuttle program, right there where the hardware was. But it really wasn't until, I don't know, probably 9 years working there that I finally started thinking about the astronaut job as something that could potentially be real for me. And I think the thing that really influenced me the most and was the biggest step towards me becoming an astronaut was trusting some of my mentors who encouraged me to pick up the pen and fill out the application. And I'm so thankful to them. I had seen what astronauts do when they were coming to the Kennedy Space Center and getting ready to fly. And it looked like a really neat extension of the job I was already doing for NASA with this bonus of, one day maybe getting to fly in space. And so I thank them every time I see them for encouraging me to do that. And I would recommend the same to you guys. When you're going through school and you're into different jobs and you're encountering people that you trust and that know you, and sometimes they might know you a little bit better than you even know yourself, or at least in a way that would encourage you to do something that you might not do on your own, take their words to heart and consider them, because it's amazing the opportunities that are out there if you allow yourself to just apply for them.
Thank you so much for taking time to join us. We really appreciate it, and just all the best to you and everything you're doing, especially with trying to bring art. So if we have just a moment or so, if you could just tell us a little bit about that you're trying to move from STEM to STEAM, I think it's called it. So in addition to science and technology and engineering and math, also adding art into that. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I retired from NASA about a year and a half ago, and that was when I was still in the astronaut office and I was still eligible to fly in space. In fact, I was in line to fly in space again, probably relatively soon in the grand scheme of flight assignments. But I was also at the point of thinking, what was my next adventure in life going to be? What did I need to be doing with my son and my family? What could I do to continue to hopefully contribute to something good and valuable as a path in my life? And so I came to the conclusion that I would retire from the astronaut office. That's a difficult decision to come to, because there's, aside from flying in space, there's a lot of really interesting things that we do on a daily basis. The training, flying in T-38 jets and swimming in the big neutral buoyancy lab and helping other people who are on orbit or getting ready to fly. But when I finally made the decision, I knew that I would need to continue doing something where I was sharing and uniquely sharing the experience that I had flying in space and working for NASA with such an incredible program with all the things that we're doing. And art became the thing that made the most sense to me. I was very fortunate to paint while I was in space, and I think that was the real inspiration behind me taking this path now with art post-flight to share the experience. And I think it's just that. I think art as a communication tool is so impactful. It can be overwhelmingly impressive for somebody to visually experience something that they might not understand just from the ones and zeros. And I think we do that in science anyway. We've been doing it all along as we've been curious and discovering new things. The way we communicate it best with each other is through writing and painting and drawing and sculpture and things like that communicate so much better with our brains. And I also believe that art and science together is the best way that we can use our whole brain, our whole brain to understand things, our whole brain to discover things, and our whole brain to be teaching things to our kids so that they can get the best experience out of school and be able to be problem solvers and decision makers when they grow up. And I think art is just a unique and creative way of doing that.
Well, excellent. Thank you. And the girls are getting their bags right now. Thank you again for taking time to join us this afternoon. It's been a delight. We wish you well.
You're welcome. Thanks for the interest. I hope Peggy enjoyed talking to you, ladies.
Thank you. Have a great day.